Hill, Editor-in-Chief of Legal IT Insider, and I'm joined today by Ben Allgrove, who's a partner and Global Head of R&D at Baker McKenzie. Hi, Ben.
Hey, Caroline.
Thanks for joining me.
Absolute pleasure. Great to be here.
So we're here to talk about Spark Beyond, your partnership with Spark Beyond, and there was a very recent announcement, actually, that you're creating a dedicated science team, 11-strong dedicated science team around your partnership with Spark Beyond. And I thought that before we talk about, so we're here to talk about that data science team and stage 2, but before we get to there, I thought it would be quite useful if not everyone will be familiar with what you're doing with Spark Beyond, so I thought it'd be really useful to track back to the announcement that you made in October last year, and the work that you're doing with them. That sounds good.
Happy to give a brief rundown. In fact, I think it's probably useful to go a bit further, 3 or 4 years back, because what we're doing here now is a result and part of a continuing thought process over the last 4+ years. Now, obviously, all your listeners are going to be well aware that artificial intelligence and more accurately machine learning is relevant to the business of law and is already being used in the business of law in various places. Most of that to date has been quite application specific. So within e-discovery or within investigation software, or within email systems or document management systems. So the narrative that AI has not hit the law yet is a false narrative from the very start.
Okay.
But 4 or 5 years ago, when the legal innovation conversation really took off, there was a lot of hype in the market, as you well know, about the robot lawyer coming to destroy the industry and revolutionize what was happening. And the reality is there's been a lot of hype that hasn't been delivered upon. Most of the improvements have been incremental and have been application specific. We, in the early stages of this, looked at broader based machine learning capabilities within our business that were less application specific and more application agnostic, and actually felt the business case wasn't there 4 or 5 years ago. We felt the technology wasn't ready. We felt that the means of partnering in the business case with the providers wasn't ready. And so we decided to take a wait and see approach to that broader based AI push. What has happened in the last sort of 6 to 9 months, as we've announced our partnership with Spark Beyond, is we've finally found a partner that we think can work with us to explore that next evolution of machine learning and digitization in the legal business. And that's in our business, but also in servicing clients. So using that technology in order to provide different types of services in the legal domain to clients. Yeah. So what we did was we formed this partnership with Spark Beyond.
Can I interrupt you just for 1 second? Just because, so I think it's important to explain. So what Spark Beyond do? Tell me if you may be able to define it better. So they use AI. I think they connect the various data sources. So in effect, they're trying to help you work out what will happen next, right? So for example, one of the examples that I quite liked was that they might work out if a customer might leave. For example, they can look at churn. So they can look at customer behavior and then enable you to put in place a more focused retention program to retention campaign, something like that. Is that fair? Is that fair to say?
Yeah, look, I mean, obviously your viewers can go to sparkbeyond.com and let them read the product specs there themselves. But at its core, you're right. There are a couple of different products that they offer, but what they offer is a cloud-based machine learning platform that you can connect up data sources to. So data that Baker McKenzie holds, but data that our clients hold, or data that you can get from the market, say financial data from Bloomberg that you can buy in, any data source that you can find, connect those things together. And the discovery engine, which is the core product that they offer, looks for insight out of that data. Right. So what's the data telling us? Now, it's not just a plug and play. You need data scientists and data analysts and architects to work with that to know what you're looking for. And you need domain experts to say, well, this bit of insight's interesting and this is obvious, so we're not that interested. So that is the collaborative team effort. And we'll come to the team we're building to take that forward. Yeah. They also have a second product, which it looks for correlations in data. Right. So it's a slightly different lens on the same problem. But at the end of the day, machine learning is big data sets, massive computing power, and statistical analysis. And what we are trying to do is to say, well, how can we bring that to bear both for our internal digital transformation, like everyone's going through at the moment, but more excitingly, to be honest, into delivering new types of services to clients that have a legal flavor, but are data driven, right? So it's important to us to combine those two things together. We're not becoming a tech company. We're not selling AI. That's definitely not what we're doing, and we don't want to do that. What we want to do is combine those two things together to make something interesting, and that's what we're hoping that we'll be able to do here.
And you're trying to provide answers that people haven't thought of, right? That's one of the ways that you've described it. So because we are simply physically not capable of looking through the sheer volume of data that the computers and that you're trying to kind of. It does feel a bit like trying to predict the future. That's me being.
No. I think it's a fair sort of characterization. Certainly with the Discovery Engine, predictivity is one of the things that has value in some scenarios. So it might be, obviously you have products on the market that try and predict the outcome of litigation, for example.
Yeah.
We might be able to do that type of analysis using data that we hold that isn't available out in the market, actually, because we have a different insight on certain things. So maybe we can help clients say, actually, on your specific case, rather than just a generic tool, here's how you combine an external prediction and an internal prediction to get something that's more robust and more data backed, so that you can then make a decision. But I think the key point is the data in the game that we're in, the data itself is never going to make the decision. The tool doesn't make the decision. What it is about is enabling judgment, which I think at the end of the day is the most valuable thing that law firms sell and in-house counsels sell to their business or provide to their business. It's the judgment piece. And so can you use machine learning to enable that judgment to be better, faster, quicker? They're both characteristics of better, but also more accurate.
Yeah.
And then track it over time to make sure that actually that is, the promise is being borne out by the results.
Tell me something, because when we spoke before, you made the comment that so we've in the same way as post AI hype, everyone sort of got a bit smarter and interrogated stuff a little bit more. We also had it drilled into us, and I've said this many times, that AI is only as good as your data. But you said to me that this is different, that it doesn't need good data in the way that the other AI that we're more familiar with does. Why is that?
Well, I think there's 2 points here. So one is, the quality of data in is going to impact output. I completely agree with that. But there are two things which are changing. So one is that actually, as machine learning techniques improve, you're needing less and less data in order to drive outcomes and insight. So, certainly that is our ambition with Spark Beyond is to work at that pointy end, because the less we have to do that, the less we have to rely on the data sets, then the better.
Yeah.
But actually, one of the second point came out of our pilot, because one of the reasons we piloted this project rather than just launching was because we wanted to, we came from the perspective that our data was bad, right? As a general rule, we felt, look, law firms aren't data repositories generally. They're not good at managing their data. It's quite a common refrain that we have, that we're deficient on that. And we wanted to test, whether you could, notwithstanding that, get insight from the data that we had, but also without having to do a big data cleansing exercise, because again, that destroys the business case most times for actually investing in these things. And that was one of the key KPIs for the pilot, was to say, well, can you get insight without having to do those two things, without having to cleanse the data massively and just using the data that we have connected to external data sources as well? And the answer to that was yes. So it's not perfect, and you have to look, this is why you need the data scientists and you need the experts to say, well, that result makes no sense, right? And then dig down into why the model was returning that result to say, is it a problem with the data? Is it a problem with the model? And the answer is sometimes it's one or both of those sorts of things. But the promising thing, and the reason we decided to kick on with this, is because actually the insights we were getting were meaningful and positive, notwithstanding some of those issues. And actually, I probably shouldn't say this publicly, we were pleasantly surprised by the quality of our data.
No one's listening. No.
In the output. But equally, the feedback we got from Spark Beyond is actually your data is up with market compared to their corporate clients they work with as well already. So that was a useful bit of validation that actually there is value to be derived from the knowledge. And quite often it's said of us as a business, if there's the baker brain, right? You have this large organization with touch points across practice and across jurisdiction. How you connect that, we're hoping that this will form part of the solution to make that more than just individuals picking up the phone or dropping an email. To make that something that we can extract, more insight from, both for ourselves and for our clients.
So let's talk about the stages. So last year you announced that you were entering a 4-stage partnership. Mm-hmm. So stage 0, as you said, was find the right partner. Stage 1, to prove the tech can work. Is that right? So and then sort of convince your internal stakeholders effectively that the pilot that there's some mileage in this. And that I guess is that's the stage you're at now, right? You've done the successful pilot. You've done the pilot, and you say it was regarded as very successful internally, obviously.
Yeah, that's right. So the pilot was about validating that our data could deliver insight, validating that the technology worked, and we could work together as organizations, and running some pilot test cases to show potential. Effectively, what could you do with this sort of capability? Now, we deliberately chose not to use client data in that pilot process or to do a client-facing proposition, and that was purely pragmatic. It was because the quickest way to get access to this stuff is to use your own data and not have to deal with the obvious client confidentiality and data protection questions, which are all incredibly valid issues you need to work through. So speed to pilot was saying, well, let's keep it internal, and let's focus on some of the business challenges that we have. So we looked at challenges like, how do you identify when a client might want to buy a certain type of legal services within a certain period of time, so that you can then focus your attention on that client for that period of time, right? And so could we predict, for example, when a client might need M&A services in a particular period of time by looking at our own data plus data in the market, news releases, those sorts of things? The answer to that is, yeah, you can. Not perfectly, but you can. We also looked, as another example, saying, well, could you predict which clients would be good clients for us as a firm? And we put metrics around that, around revenue, profitability, the type of work we want to do, and built a model based on a training set, and then extrapolated that model across historic data to say, well, if we'd used the model, what would it look like against our actual results? And again, the answer is you get a pretty accurate model. Again, not perfect. These things never are. And if you wanted to put those into production, you would have to iterate them and refine them to get them to the point where they were closer to that 0.99% accuracy or whatever your target you're setting. They're not at that stage yet. But what the pilot showed was you could do it. You can combine Baker and McKenzie data and external data that we could get in the market to produce useful business results. This next stage is saying, okay, now that we've proved that business case, what is the infrastructure that you'd have to put together to actually go out there and design the business models and the client propositions to deliver client services, to service the internal business? Because you could just buy consultants in and buy the technology and do it for your own internal purposes if you wanted to.
Yeah.
But that's where we're at this stage.
So you're looking to sort of productize, where you find a valuable use case, you're looking to different ways to productize it.
Ultimately, yeah, and that's probably stage 3 more than stage 2 where we're at the moment. So stage 2, we expect most of our client-facing propositions to be working with forward-leaning clients who are willing to experiment with us, where they have data sets that they think internally they might have some value in, that they can get access to, and that they can combine with data that we can bring to the table, to say, well, actually, is there something in this? What does that look like? And we think we want to experiment with a limited number of clients in the early days to work those out. That will look more like a consulting type arrangement, I suspect, and a partnership type arrangement with those clients. Yeah. The insights from that as to, what data is valuable to clients, what data do clients have access to that they might be able to operationalize in this way, will then, in due course, drive productization decisions. Yeah, we would love to build tools and platforms that can deliver this stuff in a more scaled way, but I suspect the early day will be fairly bespoke.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because I guess that, so what you're talking about with them spotting about the information about what clients will do when, that would fit neatly within a CRM system, wouldn't it? You'd almost want to sort of find ways to sort of build it into your CRM workflow rather than just having a kind of, that would seem to make the most sense, wouldn't it? Because obviously there's a lot of work being done in terms of that kind of analysis, but maybe not being able to, maybe currently they can't take it that far.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, you're well ahead of me. Some of those models that were in the pilot, if we sort of proceed with those models, I suspect that's where they'll be built out. This team we're building includes, an app designer precisely for that sort of integration type functionality into our CRM system or other systems within our business for that type of information. But equally, you can think of it from a client perspective. Say if one of the use cases that clients want to explore was a risk analysis, a sort of a live active risk analysis across a subject area. That could be anything. But you could do a project doing that analysis, and you can use all the big data crunching, and you can use all the computing power to do that analysis as a one-off. But then the obvious next step is to say, well, actually, could we keep that live? If you can keep the data feeds live so that it evolves over time, and can we build that into your systems at company X or Y? Because I think there's a very distinct move in the market from clients not wanting a series of point solutions. What they want is for things to be built into their systems.
100%.
You can't do that for everything. And obviously we don't have the standards yet to build just general purpose APIs that everyone can live with. That's not, the industry's not at that stage yet. But this is, I think, part of the development towards that. And I would certainly, want to be playing part of a role in that.
Interesting. Okay, so before we move on I want to move on to stage 2 and the team that you're building around it. I wanted to just reflect back on. So when I wrote about all of the information that we've just talked about, one of the reactions I got, and I've got it here. So this reads a little bit like a press release of Yondir about AI. It's going to do this AI magical thing and predict what customers want. Very Holy Grail-esque, light on the details and big on the promises. What do you say to that?
Look, I'd say fair comment. It was a press release. That's precisely what it was. But we're not trying to say that there's this, big out of the pocket product that's ready now. And I think we're being transparent about that. What we are doing is saying this is coming to our industry. Everyone's trying to figure out in their way. Competitors have hired data scientists, have announced, in recent times. You have competitors putting out AI-enabled tech products, sort of application-specific products. We use AI across our business, as we talked about before. Those things are all happening. This is, a project to take a small step into building a capability to combine law with data science in a different way for clients. And to my knowledge, there's not many other law firms that are trying to do this or have tried to do this. But it's about building a team. We're not saying that that this is going to build the AI robot or the AI lawyer. That's not the case. But I think if we're having this conversation in 3 years' time, proof will be in the pudding. Either we will have a meaningful stream of revenue from data-enabled judgment services. I'm going to say services rather than products, because I think products is a later piece to it. Services, or we won't. Right, and then it will not have worked. But finding a way to do that in a way that is scalable within the business models of a law firm and within the budgets of general counsel, that is the holy grail that I'm looking to target, as opposed to what can the AI do. If I'm honest.
I like that. So it's really interesting. I was interviewing a software company for Latera TV recently, and it was Rocket Lawyer, and he said we're talking about the project that they're doing in Utah, where there's no guarantee that it will go ahead. I think it's given a shelf life for 7 years, and he said, oh, well, failure is something. Software companies, we do failure. We're not afraid of failure, and I think this is really, really interesting that you can build that into. Within a law firm, that's so unfamiliar. But I think you have to have an element of that, and I like the fact that you're being very. I know obviously that there's every hope and expectation that it will be successful, but I like the fact that you're very candid about the fact that there is a chance that it won't be.
Yeah, we can't do risk. I mean, I think there's a spectrum, right? Like I have supreme confidence. I'm going to regret saying that, but I have supreme confidence that the internal business case is clear, right? The digitization model, the better use of data to better interrogate what your people are doing when they're doing it, what your clients are doing when they're doing it. That's not that revolutionary, and lots of industries are well ahead of the curve from the legal industry on that side of things. So I've got complete confidence that return on investment will prove for that side of things. On the client proposition and the external side, I am confident, but it is unproven territory, and it's territory where you have to make an investment at the start to see if you can do it. But I'm super excited that my partners have bought in and said, okay, have a go, but also have a go with a meaningful amount of investment and a meaningful timeline. It's a 3-year timeline for this next phase. So it's not next financial year, you've got to prove the return. It's saying you've got a bit of time to prove the case. And we accept that it might not work. Now, if it doesn't work, we're going to ask you why.
This is just your little toy box.
Exactly. It's not just a toy. And that's why I think we'll come and talk about the team. But one of the things I'm happy about is the fact that it's a meaningful team. It's not we'll give you one person, have a go, and then if you can prove your case, we'll add one more. It's saying, okay, what do you need as a minimum viable product, basically, as a minimum viable team? What's the resourcing that you need? And there's obviously conversations around that, but we got to these 11 people.
And this is new, we should clarify. Cool. So these are you're getting to go out, and we'll talk a bit more about the makeup of it. But you're getting to go out. You're getting some of the hires might be internal, but you're getting to hire. It's a brand new data science team of 11 people. Correct.
I mean, these are dedicated to this, new heads in the business, and the job specs have already gone out for the founder roles. So the two founders that we bring in to lead this team.
Right. So explain a bit about that. So you want 2 founders, and what do you mean by that?
So it's interesting. We had a lot of discussion about what to call these people because they don't really exist in law firms. And I guess the role they're filling is the role that you'd expect a senior partner to fill in a law firm, right? They have responsibility for generating business, for managing the business, for developing the product that's being sold, and managing the team as well. So, but they are going to take entrepreneurial risk in this. So upside benefit if it makes it work. We want them to have a stake in the business, even though it's sitting within an existing law firm. And equally to understand that it's a risky business, right? So we want them to invest and buy in, which is why we're calling them founders. It's actually a term you're seeing quite a few companies using now for that sort of innovation type team role. So hiring 2 people, job ads have gone out. We've already had over 500 applications for it, which is just astounding.
And you want lawyers, don't you? You want somebody ideally, so lawyer, so legally qualified.
Correct. So these are the people who are going to be sitting down. As I said, we want to view this like a practice, right? So saying who's going to sit down with the GC of company X or the head of M&A of company Y and say, look, here's what we need to do. Here's your problem. Here's how we could bring lawyers plus data science to bear on that problem. And, that is something that already the Big Four and the consulting firms are doing on strategic consulting with the CFO, right? So it's not, again, in professional services, this is already happening. All your big consultancies have data-driven teams in various different guises. We think there's an opportunity in the legal strategy space and sort of the high-end legal piece for that as well. This isn't about mass document review or contract analysis, unless it fits as part of a bigger, more strategic piece.
Yeah. And I think it'll be easy. I mean, I've seen other law firms have started for quite a while now. They've been put, not all of them, but some of them have started to put together data science teams. And I think that because this is significant investment, and because they've got quite a horizontal, they've got quite a broad spectrum of things to work on, I think you're probably more likely to be able to retain people, because I think retention's been a bit of an issue, but this is obviously a significant investment. And I think that might, obviously that's going to help. Have they been publicly said how much has been invested, or has that not been?
Not that number, but it's a significant sum. Right. You can do the maths with 11 people over 3 years plus the technology investment. So, but that's not public. But I think the other significant thing is it's not just a tech buy from Spark Beyond. It's a partnership. We are the exclusive partner in the legal industry for Spark Beyond. So that means,
and that's new, isn't it? Because when you first, that's as of stage 2, because initially it wasn't an exclusive thing. But so how did that come about? I mean, that's great for you.
Well, because we want both of us to be mutually incentivized to invest in, exploring the opportunities in the legal sector. It's not a sector that Spark Beyond was in before. They're in insurance, they're in corporates, real estate, various other sectors. Legal was new to them. They're in consulting or professional services consulting. Legal was new. And we have at the senior levels, we have a good meetings of mind about what those opportunities might be, and actually think that we're going to get further if we sit down at the table and sort of really muck in and whiteboard the opportunities to say, some of them might be pure tech opportunities, in which case, great, we can help them identify the right things. But others might be that combination of what we bring to the table and what they can do. We think we'll get further with both of us saying, okay, we're committed to this for 3 years, let's give it a go. And then, hopefully at the end it goes on to bigger and beautiful things. But that's the logic of this.
So what are the team going to be working on? It's going to be ranged. Is this the stage now where you're going to start plugging in the client data, presumably, and really trying to bring the clients in and sort of, I think you described it as baking in their data. What are they going to be working on in the next, say, 12 months?
Yep. So 3 streams of work, and at any point in time, I'd expect them to have maybe 3, maximum 5 projects running. Right. We get against significant investment, but it's only 11 people, so you need them to focus. The 3 streams are internal, clients, and social impact. There are sort of 3 streams. So we're going to come up with the final list once we've recruited the founders. They've got to own and be part of that decision-making process. So we're not going to predetermine the final outcome before those people come on board. But on the client side, that's going to be a conversation with our practice leads saying, okay, well, firstly, where do we think there's an obvious opportunity here? And then what are the 10, 15 clients we think might be forward-leaning and want to talk about those opportunities? So we'll go talk to the clients once we've had that conversation. I should say we've already had several clients reach out proactively to us and say we'd like to be talked to as part of that process. So I think there's an appetite for that in the market. But I'd expect in the next 12 months, you'll have 1 or 2 client-focused projects coming out of that. Internally, we've already got a list of 50 that they could be working on, ranging from everything from diversity analysis and predicting talent migration and things like that, which is really important to us and something we'll focus a lot on, through to the financials, as you'd imagine we'd be doing. So I'd expect a couple of internal projects, probably actually 3 or 4 over the course of the year, because those will be smaller, I suspect. Okay. And then we do have KPIs for social impact as well. So we're hoping for at least 1 or 2 per year of social impact projects. We're nearly finished with our first one, which we mentioned briefly in the press release, but we'll be releasing more this month on that. So again, we do want that aspect of this partnership as well.
Because actually, and we should probably finish up on that, because so Spark Beyond, they're very passionate about that, aren't they? About making a difference, about having a positive social impact. And so there's a strong sort of access to justice element, isn't there? I think that wasn't that sort of built into one of the reasons why they wanted to work with you, because you yep. sort of bring that to the table.
Exactly. So cultural fit, or values fit between the organisations was, part of the selection process ultimately, as to trying to find our partners in this space. Sajad Davidovich, who's the CEO of Spark Beyond, describes the law. He's an engineer, but he describes the law as the operating system for society, which I thought was an interesting way from an engineer's perspective of how he thinks about these things. So we are going to look for those opportunities to partner. And if you think about what massive computing power and machine learning brings, it's actually a huge amount of resource to NGOs and pro bono sectors and things which they don't have access to. They're reliant on people giving up their time. And in the same way as we want to scale what we do as a business on the fee earning side, I'd love to be able to scale our lawyers do on a pro bono side for clients, or the type of information that we can get to NGOs to lobby using technology that they don't have access to or can't afford. So this team will be spending part of their time doing those sorts of projects, in conjunction with our head of pro bono and CSR teams as well.
That's great. Well, look, I think we're out of time, but I really look forward to the next stage or the next instalment when we next chat. And so let's definitely chat again. And but in the meantime, thank you. It's been really nice talking to you.
Fantastic. You too, Karen. Have a great day.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye bye.